We're now going to look at if statements in PHP and how we can actually use them to determine different circumstances based on expressions that we pass through to if statements. So let's take a look at the basic syntax of an if statement, and we'll pass in a couple of values and we'll basically see what happens. So an if statement starts with the if keyword, and then we have an expression within two parentheses. We then have an opening or an open to our block and a close to our block. So within here is everything that will be executed if something, or if this expression evaluates to true. So what's going to happen here is, well, let's just go ahead and just echo OK or something like that. So inside of here, what we can do is, to test this, we can go ahead and pass 1, for example. Now 1 is the same as true in a sense, without type checking in place. So we just see OK output to the page. Now if we were to change this to 0, then we would see a whole different story, whereas the block has not been run. So this syntax isn't complicated if you've worked with other programming languages before, but basically this is an if statement in its most basic form. So for example, we could also say if true or if false, or we could incorporate values to variables inside of this if statement. So for example, admin equals true, we could say if admin, you are an admin. So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking the value of a variable and checking this, and there we are, it says you're an admin. We could also say if admin is equal to true, would still work, and we could also say if admin is equal to true, but with type checking as well. So this will check not only that it's true, but that it is actually a Boolean value as well. So for example, if admin was 1, this wouldn't work. So being careful with type checking, we know that we can now pass through an expression, however complicated we want it to be, and then we can output a value based on this. Now, for example, we can do other things like use operators. So we could, for example, say age equals 24, and in here we could say if age is greater than 25, you are older than 25. So in this case, when we refresh, nothing happens, but if we were to change this to 30 and we go ahead and refresh, this works. So whatever expression you want to put inside of here, if it evaluates to true, then the block that you provide will be run. Now what we can also do is we can combine things in here, we'll be looking at them a bit later. We can say things like and 1 equals 1, for example, but these could be variables or anything like that. So depending on how complex you want to get with the expression that you pass through is entirely up to you, but as you progress through learning PHP, you'll understand what you can use in here and what you can't. So let's just go ahead and leave this at if age is greater than 25. Now we're also going to look at if or else conditions. So in this case, what we can say is else we want to say echo you are not older than 25. So in this case, what's going to happen is we're going to check this. If this evaluates to true, we'll run this and we won't run this. If this evaluates to false, we won't run this, but we will run this. So now if we refresh, we'll always get an answer. So you are older than 25, and in this case I can say, for example, 18. When I refresh, you are not older than 25. So this is called an if-else statement. Now what we can also do is we can incorporate checks along the way as well. So let's just say we want the person to be older than 25, and then we can incorporate another check here. So if age is greater than 25, you are older than 25. Else if age is less than 18, you are younger than 18. So in this case, what we're doing now is we're checking if the age is greater than 25 and outputting this. Then we're saying else if the age is less than 18, you're younger than 18. So in the case of something being in the middle, so 20 for example, we don't get anything output because it doesn't satisfy any of the conditions that we've passed through to this if statement. However, if we were to change this to 30, you're older than 25. If we were to change this to 16, for example, it says you are younger than 18. Now what we could also do is we could say something like else something else, and then if we were to put this in the middle of 25 and 18, then when we refresh it says something else. So there's really, this is entirely up to whatever application you're developing as to what the if statements are. But yeah, essentially that's how an if-else statement works. Now let's just take this back to the very basics. Now what we can also do is we can nest if statements within other if statements. So what we can do is we can say if age is greater than 25, and then we can say if admin echo you are an admin and older than 25. Now this isn't strictly necessary because we could use the and operator, and we could say and admin, so we could do exactly that in one line. But let's just take a look at an example of nesting, because sometimes nesting is actually required. So I'm going to say admin equals true, and what we're doing then is checking if age is greater than 25, and then we're checking if we're an admin, and in that case we'll get echo you're an admin older than 25. Yeah, so let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so we don't get any output because we have the age set to 20. If we go ahead and set that age to 30, you're an admin and older than 25. So we can do this, and we could nest perhaps multiple if statements within this main if statement. So we could say, for example, else even on here. You are older than 25, but not an admin. So this is, interchangeable. It's very basic functionality, and it doesn't make too much sense in a real-world application. But 30 and false. But basically, if you come across the need to use if statements, you can look at, which you entirely will in an application, you can look at it and evaluate how you want this to work. But basically, that is just the syntax of working with if statements in PHP.